Well, testimony is also underway in the penalty phase for Parkland school shooter Nikolas Cruz. On the stand now is Dr. Paul Connor. He is a neuropsychologist with expertise in fetal alcohol syndromes. He is on redirect, and you notice he is a Zoom witness. Let's dip in and listen to a bit of this expert who analyzed Nikolas Cruz.
Standard deviation above the mean, they're actually high average scores.
Okay. And so on your graph does represent scores that were above average, right?
Correct.
Okay. And adding the test scores that Mr. Satz said were not represented on the graph, would that change the number of domains that there's impairment in based on your testing?
No.
Regarding the issue of NDPA, neurodevelopmental disorder associated with prenatal alcohol exposure, as we talked about yesterday and Mr. Satz reiterated today, that acronym appears in two places in the DSM-5 TR, correct?
Yeah, the neurodevelopmental disorder associated with prenatal alcohol exposure is in the front, and neurobehavioral disorder associated with prenatal alcohol exposure is in the back.
And when you say the front, what does that mean?
Oh, sorry. The front are the actual diagnoses that are utilized, okay. And the back is are the conditions that were in need of further study.
Okay. And so the neurodevelopmental disorder that you were using, are you using the one from the front of the book?
Yes.
Okay. And that, I think you said yesterday, that's the one that actually has a billing code for insurance companies, right?
A diagnostic code, yes.
I'm sorry, thank you. And one last thing about the graph. Mr. Satz was asking you about where you place the score on a graph. Can you just tell me how is it determined where a score appears on the graph?
It's purely by the individual's score on a test. So when I enter their scores, so let's say the person has a T-score of 40, it gets automatically converted to a Z-score, and that, which would be a -1, and that is automatically placed on the graph for that test score or that test item. So it's just a straight conversion and graphical placement.
Okay. Just a couple other quick issues regarding things that Mr. Satz asked you about yesterday. He was inquiring about your board certification. Is board certification required for neuropsychological testing to be done?
No.
When you have done neuropsychological testing on behalf of the Department of Children and Families in Washington State, do they require board certification?
No.
And when you've been called to testify by the Attorney General's office in Washington, have they required board certification?
No.
And you conducted neuropsychological testing in several states, is that correct?
That's correct.
And one of those has been in past cases in Florida?
Yes.
Has that required board certification?
No.
When you've testified as an expert in neuropsychological testing in various states, has that required board certification?
No.
How would board certification be helpful to you in your practice?
Not much, to be honest. I've had a single case where the attorney wanted to have somebody who was board certified, so I lost one case. If I were working in a hospital setting, they may require me to be board certified. And partially what that would allow would be a higher salary, but I'm not getting a higher salary whether I'm board certified or not in my private practice. So there's no financial benefit for me. There's no benefit from the perspective of cases that I take or don't take. So there's really no significant benefit from me other than maybe a few more letters behind my name.
Okay.
And I'm not disparaging board certification, it's a legitimate process, but it is a voluntary process and not required.
Okay, and you've been conducting neuropsychological testing for about how long?
In my training as an undergrad or as a graduate since 1990. Yeah, we were starting in 1990 when I first started school, graduate school.
Can you, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, please.
Can you approximate the number of neuropsychological testing assessments that you've done?
In my private practice, I have done approximately a little over 1,000 in private practice. When I was involved in research at the University of Washington, we had studies that were, one study that was of 500 people who we were seeing multiple times, and I usually would see about half of them on a couple of occasions, so about another 500 there. In other studies, I was probably seeing about a half of those studies at the University of Washington, so about 100 or so there. And then in my internship, I evaluated, I think I was doing testing probably 3 or 4 days a week when I was in my neuropsychology specialization rotation. And then in graduate school, it would I did a fair number of assessments, especially when I was working on my dissertation and working in rehab, inpatient rehab for TBI. So I've been doing a lot of assessments over the years. And
when you conduct neuropsychological testing, is a person, whether it be a patient or a criminal defendant, is it normal for them to be brought to you with a suspicion that they have some sort of condition, and then your neuropsychological testing is done to see if you can support or contradict that suspicion?
Typically, yes. There's a referral question that's made. And, with some people who are very, very low functioning, they may not understand what it is that I'm doing the testing for, other than if it's a clinical case, we're seeing if this testing may be helpful for you for getting services or not. But in general, they have at least some concept of, I'm here to evaluate your functioning and because of certain concerns that have been raised.
And so when you are asked to assess somebody who is suspected of having a fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, do you always find that your neuropsychological testing is consistent with them having a fetal alcohol spectrum disorder?
No.
Why not?
Because they're not meeting the criteria that I use. They're not meeting deficits in the multiple domains. They may have subclinical difficulties, but it doesn't reach that level of impairment that would qualify or meet the criteria. And in those cases, we discuss the challenges that they're having. In a clinical case, we discuss the challenges that they're having, but I acknowledge that, we can't make a diagnosis here.
And so have you had cases where a person has been presented to you, a criminal defendant, who is suspected fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, and you've told them, no, my testing says that that's not correct?
Yes, about 20 to 25% of the time.